Chosen one, this might be the most important message you hear all year. Because if you've been feeling uneasy lately, if your heart's been restless and your spirit's been whispering that something big is about to happen, you're not imagining it. This is a sign from God, and missing it could delay the very breakthrough you've been praying for. So listen closely, and if you want more truth like this to guide your journey, make sure you subscribe so you never miss another word meant for you. Now let's talk about the sign you can't afford to ignore. For the past few weeks, maybe even months, you've been sensing a shift. It's subtle at first. You wake up feeling like your life doesn't quite fit anymore. People you used to laugh with suddenly feel distant. Places that once brought you comfort now feel empty. The things that used to excite you barely hold your attention, and deep inside, there's this unshakable sense that God is trying to get your attention. This isn't random. In the spiritual realm, when God is preparing to move you into a new season, He often starts by making you uncomfortable. In the old one, the comfort you once felt in certain relationships, habits, or environments begins to fade. It's like wearing clothes that used to fit perfectly, but now feel too tight. Not because you've done anything wrong, but because you've outgrown them. And here's the part most people miss. This discomfort is not a punishment. It's preparation. God knows that if you feel too at home where you are, you won't be willing to step into where He's taking you. So He starts nudging you, sometimes gently, sometimes urgently, and those nudges are the sign. But chosen one, here's the challenge. We often confuse these signs for problems to fix. We think, maybe if I just try harder, I can make this friendship work again. Or, maybe if I change my approach, I'll feel happy here again. But God isn't asking you to fix it, He's asking you to move. And the longer you try to patch up something He's trying to release you from, the more drained and stuck you'll feel. Think of the prophet Elijah. After a season of great miracles, God led him into a period of transition, and it didn't look glamorous. It looked lonely. It looked uncertain. But it was in that season that God began to whisper to him, not in the wind or the fire, but in a gentle, quiet voice. And if Elijah had ignored that whisper, he would have missed the next part of his calling. You might be in that same place now. God is whispering, and the sign is in the subtle shifts around you. Pay attention to what's fading. Pay attention to what no longer brings you peace. Pay attention to what suddenly feels too small for the person you are becoming. That's not coincidence, that's divine alignment. And yes, this sign can be uncomfortable to obey. Because stepping into a new season often means letting go of people you love, opportunities you worked for, or even versions of yourself you've held onto for years. But if God is closing a door, it's not because He wants to leave you outside in the cold, it's because He has another one waiting that you can't see yet. The danger is that if you ignore the sign, you risk staying in a place that's no longer anointed for you. And when the anointing has lifted from a season, everything starts to feel harder. What once flowed easily becomes a struggle. Where you once had favor, you now face constant resistance. This is God's way of telling you, it's time to move. So ask yourself, where in your life are you feeling that holy restlessness? What conversations, environments, or routines no longer feel aligned with who you are? Where are you forcing yourself to stay out of fear, comfort, or loyalty, even though your spirit knows it's time to go? The truth is, chosen one, God's signs aren't always big, dramatic moments. Sometimes, they're the quiet awareness that your time here is done. And when you feel that, when you notice that shift, it's not just your emotions talking. It's heaven signaling that your next chapter is ready. And here's what you must remember. Obedience to that sign often unlocks blessings you couldn't have accessed any other way. It's like Abraham. God told him to leave his homeland, his comfort zone, and go to a place he would show him. There was no map, no details, no guarantees, just a promise. And because Abraham obeyed, he stepped into a covenant that changed history. That's the power of recognizing and obeying the sign from God. It's not about what you're leaving behind, it's about what you're making room for. And right now, whether you realize it or not, God is preparing something for you that will require more space, more faith, and more trust than where you are now. So don't miss it. Don't talk yourself out of it. Don't let fear keep you in a season that's already expired. Pay attention, because that discomfort, that distance, that restlessness, it's the sign you've been asking for. Once you've recognized the sign, chosen one, the next step is the hardest, trusting it enough to act. Because let's be honest, we love the idea of God speaking to us until His direction asks us to step into uncertainty. That's where faith gets tested. When God gives you a sign, He doesn't always give you the full picture. In fact, most of the time, He doesn't, and that's intentional. If you could see every detail of where He's taking you, you wouldn't need faith, you'd just need a plan. But God's kingdom doesn't run on human plans. It runs on trust. This is where many chosen ones stumble. They receive the sign, the holy restlessness, the sudden shift in relationships, the inner nudge to prepare for something new, and instead of acting, they stall. They wait for a clearer signal. They want God to spell it out in neon lights. But here's the truth. The moment you start demanding proof before you obey, you've already stepped into disobedience. Think about Peter stepping out of the boat. Jesus didn't give him a 5-step safety plan. He didn't promise him calm seas. He just said, "Come." That was the sign. And the miracle happened only after Peter acted on it. Your sign from God works the same way. It's not a full explanation. It's an invitation. But here's where it gets deep. When God gives you a sign, the enemy sees it too. He can't stop God's plan, but he will do everything in his power to make you doubt it. He'll send distractions, delays, and voices of discouragement. He'll try to make you second guess whether you even heard from God in the first place. This is why spiritual discernment is critical. You have to know the difference between God's signs and the enemy's traps. God's signs might make you uncomfortable, but they will bring peace to your spirit. The enemy's distractions might feel urgent, but they'll always bring confusion to your soul. So here's a simple way to test the sign you've received. Ask yourself, does this align with God's character? Does it draw me closer to Him? Does it require me to trust Him more? If the answer is yes, you're likely dealing with a divine signal. If it leads you into fear, compromise, or pride, it's probably a counterfeit. Now I need you to hear this clearly. When you obey the sign, you're going to lose some things. People might misunderstand you. Opportunities might dry up. Your routine might be disrupted. But chosen one, that's not loss. That's clearing space. God will remove what can't go with you before He brings what will sustain you. The enemy wants you to see that clearing as destruction, so you panic and run back to what's familiar. But if you can hold steady in that in-between space, the place where you've left the old but haven't fully stepped into the new, you will see why God told you to move. Think about the Israelites leaving Egypt. The sign was clear. God sent plagues, parted the Red Sea, led them by a pillar of cloud and fire. But in the wilderness, They started looking back, thinking Egypt was safer because it was familiar. They forgot that what was familiar was also slavery. Don't let your old season trick you into staying in bondage just because it feels safe. There's something else you need to know. Signs from God often come in layers. The first sign is what wakes you up. The next signs are confirmations along the way. If you've been faithful with the first, God will send you the next. But if you ignore the first, you might not even recognize the rest. The moment you recognize the sign, something in you will awaken. But right alongside it, something else will try to pull you back. The voice of your past, the voice of insecurity, the voice of what if I'm wrong. That's why catching a sign from God is only the first part. The real challenge is keeping your heart steady after you've seen it. Because here's the thing, signs from God rarely come wrapped in perfection. They often show up in ways that stretch your faith. They might look inconvenient. They might appear in the middle of chaos. And yet, that's exactly how you know it's divine. Because it's not limited by your current circumstances. Sometimes the sign will ask you to leave something behind. That could be a relationship, a job, a habit, or even an identity you've carried for years. And that's hard, because letting go feels like loss, until you realize God is removing what can't go where you're going. Think about Abraham. God gave him a sign to leave his homeland and go to a place he didn't even know yet. That's uncomfortable. That's risky. And yet, because he obeyed, an entire nation was birthed from his obedience. That's the same pattern God is working in your life right now. The sign he's giving you is not just for you. It's for everyone your life will impact, directly or indirectly. But there's something else you need to know. Signs don't wait forever. Opportunities have seasons. And if you keep delaying, that window can close. God can always redeem and redirect. But you'll miss the fullness of what he wanted to do right now. So here's a hard question. How many signs have you already ignored? How many times has God tried to show you something, but you brushed it off, thinking it wasn't the right time? Maybe you thought you needed more money first, or you wanted more confirmation, or you didn't feel ready. But chosen one, readiness doesn't come before obedience, it comes because of obedience. The disciples weren't ready to feed thousands when Jesus told them to. They just obeyed, handing over the little bread and fish they had. And because they acted, the miracle happened in their hands. God works the same way today. If he's giving you a sign, it's not because you're already fully equipped. It's because he wants to equip you as you move. This is why you can't let fear dictate your decisions. Fear will always tell you to wait until conditions are perfect. But faith says, move now, because God said so. And yes, people will have opinions about your obedience. Some will say you're rushing, others will say you're foolish. A few might even try to manipulate you into staying where you are. But they're not the ones who received the sign, you are. You must learn to protect what God tells you, not. Everyone deserves access to the instructions he's giving you. Sometimes you have to carry it quietly, moving in silence until it manifests. And when it does manifest, oh, chosen one, that's when the world will finally understand. They'll look back and realize the sign you obeyed was the turning point, the moment. Everything shifted in your favor. But here's a beautiful twist. Obeying the sign doesn't just change your circumstances, it changes you. It grows your faith, deepens your trust, and sharpens your ability to hear from God. Before long, you'll find yourself recognizing signs faster, moving bolder, and doubting less. You'll go from hesitating to acting with confidence, not because you trust yourself more, but because you trust Him more. And here's where your power lies. The more you walk in obedience, the more signs God can entrust to you. He'll start revealing bigger plans, giving you greater influence, and positioning you for assignments you couldn't have handled before. But it all comes back to this moment, this sign, this choice. Will you let it pass, or will you take the step? Chosen one, I don't want you to miss this, because I've seen too many people let fear, pride, or distraction rob them of their divine moment. I've watched them settle for safe when God was calling them to extraordinary. I've seen them pray for change, but reject the very sign that would bring it. Don't let that be you, because here's the deeper truth. Every sign from God is a form of love. It's Him reaching into your life to guide you, protect you, and bless you. It's Him saying, I see where you are, and I know where I'm taking you. And the fact that you're even hearing this message right now, that's not random. That might be your sign. You've been asking God for direction, clarity, or confirmation, and here it is, wrapped in words, pressing into your spirit, telling you that now is the time. This is the moment to let go of excuses. This is the moment to trade fear for faith. This is the moment to say, yes, Lord, even if I don't see the whole path yet. Because chosen one, when you obey now, you're not just stepping into a new season, you're stepping into alignment. And when your life aligns with God's will, nothing and no one can stop what He's about to do. So I'll end with this. The sign is here, the choice is yours, and the time is now. So when you see the first sign, respond, pray over it, ask for wisdom, not for a loophole, and then take the first step, even if it's small. Because movement is an act of faith, and faith unlocks the next instruction. And chosen one, let me give you a practical example. Say you feel God nudging you to leave a certain circle of friends. You've noticed the conversations are draining, your values are being compromised, and your spirit feels heavy after spending time with them. That's your sign. You might not know who your new circle will be yet, but your job is to create the space for them. The moment you obey, God begins to align divine connections that you couldn't have found while still clinging to the old. Or maybe you feel a push to step into a new career, ministry, or project. You don't have the full roadmap, but you have the confirmation in your spirit that this is where God is leading. That's your sign. And instead of waiting until every detail is perfect, you start preparing in faith. You research, you take small steps. You trust that the God who started it will finish it. This is where you start to realize the sign isn't just about the destination, it's about transforming you on the journey. God uses the sign to strengthen your faith, sharpen your discernment, and teach you to rely on His voice over your own comfort. And here's the best part. When you obey the sign, you step into alignment. And when you're in alignment with God, you don't have to chase blessings. They start chasing you. Doors open that you didn't even knock on. Resources show up at the exact moment you need them. People you've never met are suddenly drawn to help you. That's what happens when you trust the sign enough to act on it. So, chosen one, I need you to be bold right now. Don't just nod along and think, yes, this sounds like me. Take it seriously. The sign you're seeing right now might be the answer to prayers you prayed years ago. And if you ignore it because you're scared, you risk delaying the very thing you've been waiting for. God is speaking. The question is, will you listen and will you move? When God gives you a sign, chosen one, it's never random. There's always a reason, and often that reason is bigger than you. The sign isn't just about your comfort, your breakthrough, or your next step. It's about the assignment you carry, the people connected to your obedience, and the ripple effect your yes will have for generations. This is why the enemy fights so hard to keep you distracted or doubtful the moment the sign comes. He's not just trying to stop you from moving forward. He's trying to prevent the lives that would be changed through your obedience from being touched at all. Let me make this plain. Your obedience to a sign from God might be the answer to someone else's desperate prayer. That business idea God is pressing on you. It could create jobs for people who are crying out for provision. That ministry God is urging you to start. It could lead souls to Christ who would otherwise never hear his name. That move God is leading you to make. It could place you in the exact location where someone needs your presence to spark their own healing. When you hesitate, you're not just delaying your own blessings, you're delaying theirs too. And this is where the spiritual weight comes in. God doesn't just hand signs to anyone. He gives them to the ones he can trust, the ones who've been through fire and come out still praising him, the ones who've learned that his voice matters more than human approval, the ones willing to walk alone if that's what obedience requires. Chosen one, you've probably noticed something. The sign usually comes right after a season of testing. That's not a coincidence. God often uses hardship to refine your spirit so you'll recognize his voice when he speaks. Think about Moses. Before God sent him the burning bush, the sign of his calling, Moses spent 40 years in the wilderness, tending sheep. That wasn't wasted time. That was training. By the time he saw the burning bush, Moses was humble enough to listen, still enough to notice, and broken enough to be rebuilt for his purpose. Your own wilderness season has prepared you for this sign. That's why it feels different this time. In the past, you might have brushed off a nudge from God, thinking it was just your own thoughts. But now you know the difference between his whisper and your own desire. Now you know that peace in your spirit is worth more than applause from people. Still, let's be real. Obeying a sign from God doesn't mean it's going to be easy. In fact, the moment you step forward, resistance often intensifies. You'll see sudden attacks, unexpected roadblocks, and sometimes even betrayal from people you thought would support you. This is where you must remember, resistance is proof of movement. The enemy doesn't attack what isn't a threat. If the warfare increases after you act on a sign, it's confirmation that you're headed in the right direction. But here's a secret the enemy doesn't want you to know: the very resistance you face will become the proof of God's power in your life, because when you obey despite the obstacles, God's favor covers you in a way no enemy can touch. And that's when the impossible starts to happen. Let me give you an example. I've seen chosen ones take a leap of faith into something God told them to do, and within weeks, resources show up out of nowhere. They get phone calls from people they haven't spoken to in years, offering exactly what they need. They find themselves in rooms they could have never gotten into on their own. And all because they didn't miss the sign, they acted. But here's something else that's critical. You can't just act on the sign once and then stop. Obedience isn't a single moment, it's a posture. You have to keep listening, keep adjusting, keep following the breadcrumbs God lays out for you. Sometimes, the first sign is just the beginning of a series of instructions. If you get stuck celebrating the fact that you obeyed the first, you might miss the second, and the second could be the one that unlocks the full blessing. This is where spiritual discipline comes in. You have to stay in prayer, stay in the Word, and stay sensitive to the Spirit. Because as you move forward, The enemy will try to send counterfeit signs to derail you. Counterfeit signs often look appealing but feel heavy in your spirit. They might promise quick results or an easier path, but deep down, you'll know something's off. That's why you must constantly compare what you're seeing with God's word. If it doesn't line up with His truth, it's not from Him, no matter how shiny it looks. Chosen one, I also want you to understand this. Sometimes the sign you get from God won't make sense to anyone else. You could try to explain it to your friends or family, and they might look at you like you've lost your mind. And that's okay. God didn't give the sign to them. He gave it to you. You have to be willing to look foolish in the eyes of people to be faithful in the eyes of God. That's where courage comes in. Because courage isn't the absence of fear, it's obedience, despite fear. And when you move forward with courage, something supernatural happens. God's presence goes ahead of you, clearing paths you didn't even know were blocked. Now, here's the beautiful truth. When you obey the sign, even in uncertainty, your faith multiplies. The next time God gives you a sign, you'll recognize it faster. You'll move with less hesitation. And the more you do this, the more your life begins to align with the exact blueprint He designed for you. That's when you become unstoppable. Not because you're strong on your own, but because you're moving in sync with the one who sees the beginning and the end all at once. So right now, chosen one, I want you to reflect. What sign has God already given you? What is He asking you to step into? And more importantly, what's really holding you back? Is it fear? Is it doubt? Or is it the comfort of the familiar? Remember this, the sign is not the finish line, it's the starting gun. God has already gone ahead of you. All He's waiting for is your step forward. Chosen one, here's the truth. Most people don't want to admit when God gives you a sign. You're not just stepping into opportunity, you're stepping into a battle, and that battle isn't always external. Sometimes the loudest war happens inside you.